Perl has a number of built-in functions for dealing with strings. Let's take a look at some of them. We'll start by making a working copy of builtins.pl. Call this strings.pl. Go ahead and open that up. And we'll start by declaring a string. And first function I want to show you is one called chomp. And what this does is it takes the new line off the end of a string. So we'll just put a new line here. A lot of times when you read a string out of a file, it'll come with new lines attached to it, which is normal. And if it has that new line on it, you can use the print function and just say print string, and it'll print just fine. We'll save this and run it, and you'll see it prints the string. If we were to print another line after it, let's say we print the string again, we'll see that the second string is on a separate line, and that's because this new line is at the end of it. This new line wasn't here, and we were to run that, you'll see that those strings would just run together. So the new line is useful, and yet a lot of times, like for instance if we're using the message function that we've been using throughout this course, it's more convenient not to have it. Or if you're processing your strings or putting them in an array and joining them and doing different things, you might want to get rid of a new line that's already there. So if I have this new line here, and let's say, for example, printing this in the middle of some other characters, like for instance, if I just put brackets around it for illustration purposes and put string in there, you'll see that I save this and run it, that second bracket comes out on the next line. And we might not want this to happen. So Perl has a built-in function for dealing with this, and it's called chomp. And what chomp does is it simply takes the new line off of the end of a string. We save that and run it. We see that now the new line is missing. If you try to chomp the end of a string that doesn't have a new line, it will leave it alone. So we'll do this again with a string that we already know has the new line missing, and you'll see that it doesn't take anything else off of that. Chomp is an intelligent version of an older function called chop, which if we had used chop instead of chomp, it would go ahead and take yet another character off of the end of this. And that is not what we want to have happen. So we use chomp instead of chop. There are some other interesting string functions that you might want to try. And we'll declare a second variable here. And we'll use that variable for printing out, $s2. And let's say we wanted to get the uppercase of a string. You can use the UC function for uppercase. If we save that and run it, you'll see that the string is now all in uppercase. Or conversely, if we wanted to make it lowercase, you can use LC to make it lowercase. And this is sometimes very useful. As long as we're talking about useful, one of the most useful functions that you'll find in Perl for dealing with strings is the substring function. And there's actually a set of functions that work well together. Substring, and the first argument is the string that you're going to be taking a subset of, and then the second argument is where you'll start the substring, and it's 0 base. So if we wanted to just get these two letters here, we would count 0 for the T and 1 for the H, 2, 3, 4. So that would be 5 and 6. We would start at 5 and we would take 2 letters, and that's the way this works. The first one is the starting place and the second one is the length of the substring. And then S2 will just say is. So we'll save that and run, and we just have the letters IS. And if we made this 4 letters long, we would get is because we also get the space. That counts as 1. And we have is So that's the substring function. If we want to find out where a string is within another string, we can use the index function. For example, if we wanted to find the first occurrence of the letter S in this string, we would just say, this will find the first occurrence of the letter S. And if we save this and run it, we see that the first occurrence is at index number 3, and again counting from 0. 0, 1, 2, 3. If we wanted to find the last occurrence of the letter S, we would use R index, which does the same thing as index, except it starts at the end and works backwards. And so if I save and run, we'll see that that's at 10. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's the 10th one, counting from the left and starting at 0. And the beauty of this, they're all being zero-based together like this, is that we could actually stack them together, and we could do something like this. Substring of $string starting at this place, and then if you don't give substring another argument, it just goes to the end of the line. And so here, without actually sitting here and counting, we can say we just want the string starting at the last S and going to the end, so we'll get the word string. And remember, we have the R index, which starts at the end and counts back, and it finds the last occurrence of the letter S. And using what that returns as the second argument to substring, the first argument being the string, then we're able to just get that part of the string. And so if we save this and run it, we'll see that we get the word string. So those are some of the most common and powerful string functions available in Perl. There are a few others, so it's worth looking at the documentation for this. If we bring up the Perl doc and we search for Perl func, F-U-N-C, that'll give us a complete list of all of the built-in functions in Perl. And they're categorized by individual functions. And then if we want to look one of them up, like for instance this one here, we can simply copy and paste into the search box there, and we can get the documentation for that individual function. So those are the built-in functions for strings, or the most common and powerful ones anyway, and that's how they work in Perl.